We all know one man that is very, very, very comfortable with this Giants and Eagles rivalry, and that's the former Giants head coach. Took him to a Super Bowl where they lost to the Baltimore Ravens, and that's Jim Fassel. Coach, Zach and Chase, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys.
Well, we always appreciate you coming on, and when I gave you a call yesterday, you were golfing in Manhattan Beach. That's a tough life for you. How'd you hit him yesterday?
Up and down like I always play. One good hole, one bad hole. Played out at Trump National. I never played there, and I usually don't play golf when we're over at Manhattan Beach. We also live in Las Vegas at a golf place, and that's where I play golf, but I played over here because a friend of mine was in town.
That's a tough life for you now, Coach. You're going from California then to Las Vegas. That's awesome. I would love to live your life.
Yeah, it's good. But I worked a lot of years and a lot of hours, so making up for it now.
It's well worth it.
It definitely is well worth it. And you also got a chance to work with the legend here in Philadelphia and Harry Callis. Can you just recap that experience for us? How was working with Harry?
It was great. I mean, I couldn't think of a better mentor when I started out because, I was a rookie there, and he was obviously a very experienced Hall of Fame type announcer. And, he was really good to me. He never criticized me. He would compliment me all the time. And then he had his way of just saying something a little bit and helping me and all that stuff. So he was awesome.
Jim Fassel is our guest. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Coach, let's get to these Eagles. I know you were watching the game last week as John Fassel, your son, is a special teams coordinator with the Rams. The Rams they actually did get back in that football game and almost won the thing before the Eagles squeaked out of Lincoln Financial Field with the 6-point victory. But the biggest concern for me on the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles comes with their biggest player, and that's LeSean McCoy. Last 3 games only has 22 yards, 17 yards, and had 81 last week. I know they've been rotating pieces in and out with this offensive line, but how concerned are you with LeSean McCoy?
Well, it's a concern because he's a good player, and, if he's not getting the touches and getting the yardage, then, as a coaching staff, you're always evaluating, where are we? What do we need to do better? And you just can't every week just draw up some more plays and do this. You got to say, how are we going to accomplish this goal? How are we going to change what we're doing here? And because it's every week, you got to be able to do that.
Eli Manning had struggled in that new system in the first couple of weeks, but the last 3 games, he is starting to really play well. He's getting the ball out quickly, and when Eli Manning isn't getting touched in the pocket, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. But what has gone right for the Giants in this 3-game win streak?
Well, I'll give you a little history. I watched the NFL. I coached it, but watched all the numbers. And over the years, you get 12 teams that get to the playoffs, okay? Mm-hmm. I've never seen more than 2 get into the playoffs with an upside-down turnover ratio, okay? I mean, if you're minus in the turnover ratio, it's rare that you're going to get in the playoffs, all right? Now, the first 2 games, they were upside down in the turnovers. That's what it was. I mean, they lost the turnover battle in both games. Since then, they won the turnover battle big time, and I think they're +5 now. And so, no matter what else you do, I don't care about any of the numbers. If you lose the turnover battle, you have a distinctive. I think if you're -1, you've got a 30% chance of winning the game. If you got 2, it's hard to find what the number is. But if you're -2 in the game, rarely do you win.
Coach, you've done a lot of work with quarterbacks during your career, and Nick Foles had a wonderful year last year, 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He was leading the team to countless victories, and he still is doing that as the Eagles sit at 4-1. But the issue with him has, 1, been the offensive line, and 2, he's struggling with his mechanics. Is that something that is correctable, 1? And 2, how long does it take for a quarterback to make changes in their mechanics so that they can start to be more successful?
Well, I haven't studied his mechanics, but I can tell you what happens to quarterbacks. He had a great year last year. And psychologically, and I said this to John Elway. I said this to Phil Simms. I said it to guys that were good quarterbacks, mainly with John, is that you don't have to try to win the game yourself, okay? Don't take unusual chances. Go through your progression, okay? And sometimes the best guy is sitting in the 3rd row. Give it to him. And sometimes when players, and he had an outstanding year last year, that they think that they're going to advance in their chances. I don't know a lot about his mechanics. Sometimes guys get speeded up, especially if they're in more of a not a good, consistent running game. Then the protection starts to break down. and then he gets hurried a little bit, and they start taking more chances. But I think the guy's a great quarterback. I think he can play.
The rumors, there's still questions out there on Nick Foles. I think he's a good quarterback. We understand how Philadelphia is. It's very impatient at times. You play one bad game and they're ready to move on to the next guy. But Nick Foles has had a tough year, in my opinion. Hey, I do agree with you. He's trying to do a little bit too much at times. You could just see that fumble in the game up against St. Louis. But also his offensive line, there's so many guys that are out for long periods of times right now. How tough is that for a young quarterback to get comfortable under center when you don't have a lot of your big offensive linemen that you had from a year ago?
Well, it's very difficult. Very difficult. When you lose confidence, then you're going to have time to at least go through your progression. Guys press, you start getting hit, and all of a sudden you just get out of sorts. And a lot of times what happens is, every quarterback has a time clock on a certain play. They know how long. It's a 5-step, get rid of it, or it's a 7-step, and I hitch, and I get a little more time. But when you don't feel like you're getting time to go through your progression, well, then what happens is your first read, you're going to go from the flanker to the tight end to the back is your progression. And you can give up on that flanker quick. I mean, if he's not in his route, you get it, you're going to dump it off. You're going to find the nearest and dearest guy to you and just give it to him. But I still don't think, I think they're going to be fine. My biggest concern is I've watched them that I would be looking at is defensively. They've had good and bad, but I mean, last year, their defense played more plays than any team in the National Football League. This year, right now, they have played more plays than anybody in the National Football League. And I did a little study after the 49er game. Okay, if you stick with me on this. Right now, they're averaging 74 plays a game on defense. If you compare them with the 49ers, which they could meet them in the first round of the playoffs, okay, Philadelphia's defense would have played 278 more plays than San Francisco's defense. 278 more plays. You got to take fatigue's got to come into play, and injuries. You can be decimated, and at the end of the final stretch in December, I mean, you might be worn out and have a lot of missing players with that many extra plays.
Great stat there by the coach, Jim Fassel. And you've heard some players like Cary Williams, who hasn't been able to be great in coverage. He has said that Chip Kelly's system has been wearing them down a little bit, and they just don't have enough juice for game day. Does Chip have to change something here?
Well, he's a smart coach, but you can't just, as a coach, I was an offensive strategist, okay? That's how I got the job. But, boy, I looked at the numbers on our defense and what we're doing and things like that. And in a certain game, if our defense has been on the field, they're struggling to get themselves off, which they got to do their job too. But if they are doing that, then I'm going to slow the game down. I'm going to slow the game down and try to cut their rest. I don't want my defense on the field for 12 plays and we go 3 and out real quick, no time off the clock, and they're back on the field again. So I would adjust my play calling a little bit based upon that fact. So something in whatever he wants to do, how he does it, I don't know. You got to find a way to cut those defensive reps because, like I said, your defense at the end of the year, how many more injuries are you going to have with 278 more plays than the team you're playing? Not a good deal. The one thing they can straighten out, though, we talked about turnover ratio, they're -4. Those are, to me, for Philadelphia, those are two factors that they got to have an answer for, and they better sit down as a staff and decide how we're going to do this. We got to emphasize turnovers, not giving them, but getting them, and we got to get the defense off the field a little bit.
Jim Fassel joins us right now, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. And, Coach, the Eagles have won 9 of their last 12 games against the Giants. They're going for 8 straight wins at Lincoln Financial Field. What was the message to your Giants teams when you were going to a hostile environment like one in Philadelphia when you were set to play the Eagles?
Well, I talked to them a little bit about what we have to accomplish in the game. And when we go down there, we've got to have a mindset, and we got to be able to, operate with the crowd because their fans are good. They get loud. Just to address a number of those things. And, when people ask me, and a lot of people ask me, what was the scariest game you ever go? What's the one game that you worried about more than any game? What was the toughest one? Well, it was when we played them the year we went to the Super Bowl. We had beaten Philadelphia 8 straight times. All right? seed in the NFC. If we would have lost to a team that we beat 8 straight times, we're out of the playoffs. It wasn't going to be pleasant in New York.
Now, the Giants have kind of provided the Eagles with some bulletin board material this week, and both teams have kind of traded verbal jabs, especially on the Giants' end. When you're going up against a rival, and I know the juices are flowing in between the two teams, but if a player makes a comment to the media kind of trading a punch with the other team, would you bring them into your office and say, hey, tone down on the comments, or are you okay with that?
Oh, no, there were certain lines you better not cross. And I covered that in my speech opening day. Or actually, I covered it when we were in the off-season things. I had some points. I said, listen, guys, we all learned when we were about 6 years old, our mom and dad said, if you don't have something nice to say about somebody, they don't say anything at all. And I said, okay, I never, ever, ever want to hear or see you make a comment derogatory to your teammates, your coaches, or our opponents. Okay? Your butt will be in my office quick, and I will be as mad as I could be with you. Okay? Do not say anything that is bulletin board stuff for them. Don't have something nice to say, just say no comment.
I never
had that problem.
I'll never forget that I was talking to Jerry Kramer, and obviously Jerry was that guard on those Vince Lombardi teams, and there was some player at the time that said something stupid to the media, and Jerry would say if any player ever did that on the Packers, and there were players that did, and it's different obviously now these days with how much media availability there is, that Coach Lombardi would give that player a little bit extra attention in practice and throw some more runs at him.
Oh, yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think this generation right now that's playing, they came into all the social media stuff and all the computer things you can do and more media coverage, and it's almost like a little bit of a lifestyle. But I think there's some guys that know they'll get their name in the paper and headlines, and it helps them with the hometown crowd. I'm standing up. No. Guys, follow my lead. You will never, ever, ever see me make a derogatory comment about an opponent we're coming up with, a player, anything like that. If you played a terrible game, I'm not going to skate you to the media. I'll cover it as best I can, but I can't just say, oh, no, he was wonderful today when you gave up 2 touchdowns over your head or something.
Coach, last one for me. It's kind of a personal interest story. I was reading a book over the summer by John Feinstein, Next Man Up, and he talked a lot about you taking a break from coaching and mentoring Kyle Bowler with the Baltimore Ravens. That's a guy who had a lot of talent, but he couldn't necessarily get it going in his NFL career. Why was it that Kyle Bowler didn't live up to expectations as a first-round pick?
Well, I'll put this gently. I mean, Baltimore went through about 9 quarterbacks, and none of them were successful.
Mm-hmm.
None of them. Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl, but that same year they won the Super Bowl, they went 5 games without even scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. You figure it out, because I like the guy. I tried to really work with him on some things, but, they struggled offensively for 9 years.
Yeah, because I know you exhausted a lot of effort in trying to get him going.
I like Kyle. I really do. I look at some of these guys, and I just wish I could grab them at some point in time and work with them.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate because of the guys I coached, but I was probably one of the most proud guys I've ever coached was Barry Collins. We changed him completely. Speeded up his release, made him more accurate, and he was a true professional in that locker room, and he was a leader, and that was different than everybody said about him when finally got released to New Orleans. But I'm very proud of him. He changed his life. He changed the way he played the game, mentally and physically, and went on to play a lot of games and take us to the Super Bowl.
Coach, before we let you run, as we're talking with Jim Fassel on the way out here, going back to the Eagles and the Giants, this is the key for the game for me. Eagles have been awful defending the pass this year. Giants come in red hot on the offensive side of the ball with some big weapons in Odell Beckham, Victor Cruz. Does this game just come down to if the Eagles are going to be able to contain this Giants offense in the passing game?
I think so. I think so. In the passing game, fatigues the defense more. It does. Because they're hard rushing, and the DB's got to cover these guys all over the field. So, what is Philly 2.5-point favorite, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. They're slightly favored.
Yeah, but I still think the same thing is going to come down to as a lot of games. First of all, the turnover ratio. I believe that, and that's how New York lost 2 games. If they win the turnover in every game, they're probably undefeated right now. And that's where it's going to come down to right there. And then the other thing is, I guess the good news is Philadelphia has scored 7 non-offensive touchdowns. That's huge. I mean, that's amazing. Their special teams are playing lights out.
Yeah, Dave Fick's doing an unbelievable job.
Week, But when you score in the first 5 games 7 non-offensive touchdowns, if you can keep that up, well, that's a check in the column that says we're going to be special.
Coach, great perspective. We appreciate your insight today. Some really good statistics by you. Thanks for the time, and enjoy that California sun. I know we're a little bit jealous of you over there.
Yeah, well, thanks. I am enjoying it right now, and always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach Jim Fassel joining us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Okay, we'll take our final break of the day. We'll open up phone lines, and we'll be back right after these short messages.